All right, welcome to the Two Sons Podcast. Happy New Year's Eve, everybody. Although I'm not sure I'll actually get this uploaded today. We're getting over
Dude, let's make it happen.
All right, we'll make it happen.
We
Fine,
haven't
we'll make it
released
happen.
a pod in 2 weeks.
It has been a long time. It's been the holidays, though. The holidays are crazy because I haven't seen my best friend Luke here in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it's been a long time.
But it's been nonstop family. My little brother's been in town. Today was actually his last day in the Army. He's getting out of the Army.
No way.
Yeah, and then my grandparents that were in town from Texas all week. And then obviously Christmas Eve, even the day before Christmas Eve, we had a big party with Carly's siblings. It's just been one thing after the other. So let me ask you this first. How have your holidays been so far?
Dude, what's crazy is that's actually a genuine question. Like, that's how little, like, that is not for the pod. It's been good, dude. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I felt like I've worked a lot, which is funny because this is probably the least I've worked in like 8 years. But it's actually been awesome. Yeah. We went up to Prescott, saw my folks. We were only there for like one night. We spent some time with Elena's family. It was like, even though we traveled a lot, it felt like a really chill Christmas, which was what we were like really looking for, you know? How about you?
Yeah. I worked on Wednesday before Christmas, and then I took Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and the first half of Sunday off, which was nice. And during that time, like, it was just family and friends, super relaxed. It was great to get some space from work. But then I swear from Sunday literally to today, I'm pretty sure I've worked every single day. We have 2 videos going up later tonight. I had one yesterday, 2 the day before that. I want to say that in the last 7 days, we've done like 9 videos or something insane like that.
That's
actually
crazy.
That's not even close to right because we did 4 on Christmas Day.
Oh my!
So
goodness.
I think we've done like 10 or 11 videos. It's just been a lot of work.
That's a lot, dude.
Just a steady stream of work and then seeing family. Like Carly, like I love the holidays because I love slowing down for a little bit to spend time with loved ones. Pretty much what I did up until Christmas Day. Carly, it stresses her out because it's just one thing after another. And girls do have it tougher. We have to admit. Because, like, for instance, we're doing this New Year's Eve party today. Now, here's what I had to do for this New Year's Eve party. I had to wear sweatpants. That's it. Okay?
Well, it's a pajama party.
It's a pajama party. But, like, my wife
and don't get too excited. This isn't like a sexy pajama party. This is like long sleeve shirts and pajama pants.
This is a boring white people pajama party.
Yeah,
let's just put it that way.
Yeah, very PG. Very G.
Yes, very G. But, like, my wife, she has to, like, make pull apart cheesy bread because apparently we're doing it potluck style, and all the girls, it's funny because like the girls all look up some cool recipe to do and they're gonna do something like fancy. I was literally talking with my wife about this last night. I was like, why don't we just like go pick up something that's easy? And she's like, because that's not as fun, blah, 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 blah. And she's like, this is why you need women in your life. And
it's
I'm
so
like,
much fun to stress about making food.
Yeah, it's like, meanwhile, my wife is like works like 55 hours a week in retail and is just super busy. Like, and sometimes I want to be like, hey, like this is where you can trim some fat. It's like maybe not have to make pull apart cheesy bread on New Year's.
And here we are, like, let's do a pod.
Yeah, exactly. I was watching football earlier. I mean, obviously I had to work earlier today, but like my point is like,
big win against ASU.
Yes,
even though it was ugly basketball.
The U of A basketball team is a whole other soapbox that I could get on if we wanted to.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to complain too much though because we're top 5 in the nation.
Yeah.
But the point is like I feel like for guys, the vast majority of our stress is tied up in our responsibilities. Like we're very efficient. Guys, I feel like are more efficient.
Dude, what's funny though is maybe you're efficient because like I don't know, man. I feel like I'm slow at stuff. Even Elena's like, dude, you're moving slow this morning. It's because we don't have as much fat in our schedule, so we have more free time to relax. Like I was supposed to go to the gym with her before I came here, and no,
it just didn't happen.
No, it just didn't happen.
Yeah, it happens. It's a lazy Saturday.
My hamstring though is a little tight, so
dealing with some hamstring stuff.
Yeah.
I have had a bunch of players in town from that former Foothills players that are in town. Shout out to Sam, Carson, and Hayden. Sam just finished a year at Stanford last year. Now he's the starting point guard at a D2 in Colorado. And then Carson plays up at Johns Hopkins, and then Hayden plays out in California. And they're all just super talented young players that came back in town, and they I just got to work out with them all week, and then I've been hosting some open gyms, and so it's been a really fun couple weeks at basketball too, which has been nice.
Good.
But that again, that's just all the reasons why I love the holidays and why Carly's crazy for not liking the holidays as much. But so obviously, Two Sons Podcast, we haven't done an episode in a long time. We are planning on gearing up. As you can see, Luke has upgraded.
Yeah,
to a fancy microphone arm.
Making changes here.
Yeah, just moving on up. We're going to do, today we're covering Thrawn Greater Good, which is the second book in the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy. It's no secret around here that we are Thrawn freaks. I just finished last night this third book of the first Thrawn trilogy, my second time.
You must listen to those nonstop.
I just listen to them whenever I'm doing anything.
Here's what works for you though. Like your brain can do that. Like I cannot. I can listen to an audiobook when I drive, and that's about it. Like it would be awesome if I could work in my wood shop and listen to audiobooks, but I just can't. Like,
because you're making calculations and stuff.
Yeah, focused. So like the only time that I listen to it is when I drive, and now that I don't have that like super long commute anymore, I haven't found time to listen to the books. But I did finish the second book finally. It was incredible. And we always forget to say this, but there are massive spoilers. So don't let us ruin that for you.
If you have not read Greater Good and you intend to at some point in the future, now is a good time to turn off the episode.
Like legitimately apologies that we haven't said that in any of our other podcasts, because we literally break it all down and we never give people a heads
I would
up.
hope it's implied in the title.
I would hope so. But I feel like that's like
actually no. I changed my mind. If you clicked on one of our book reviews and you thought it was going to be spoiler free, then
shame on you.
Yeah, we don't want you to listen to this.
But I feel like that's what all the cool podcasters do. Like they're spoiler.
Just proper podcast etiquette.
Yeah, we're trying to get up on that. We're learning.
Yes, we are. So anyway, today we're going to be covering the second Greater Good book. There's a couple of different things I was looking. First of all, having just finished the first trilogy again, very much enjoyed it more the second time.
I bet.
A lot more context.
I'm sure.
Oh, especially in that third book when Admiral Arlani is working directly with Thrawn against the Grist.
And you can tell they had that huge
context.
history. Do you think they've got like a little love relationship thing? I was getting that vibe when we were going through the first series that we read with Thrawn. Like, it seemed like they had like a little bit of like a love relationship happening.
Well, they basically like went on dates and stuff when they were in the academy.
Yeah, that's right.
Like, remember, and they like went to museums and looked at art together, and they did that kind of thing.
True.
I'm not sure that it's romantic per se.
What do you think? Thrawn's too analytical to fall in love?
I think it's more, that and like okay. Did you ever see? Have you seen the Sherlock Holmes TV series?
Yeah,
with Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's really good, but it's a similar type of thing there where like he has these like kind of romantic relationships, but he's terrible at them.
Yeah,
because he's so like analytical that he's borderline like too cynical to actually like get close to somebody. Like he's too work focused to any of that kind of stuff. I just kind of imagine to be that kind of thing.
Thrawn's the definition of like work focused.
Oh yeah,
his work is literally
purely loyal, borderline robotic with his decision making,
right?
Like all those kinds of things.
Which actually could be our first take for the Thrawn Ascendancy books is. You actually see him get out of that robotic nature, right? Like we start to see him, and this isn't so much the second book as it is the third. So spoiler alert again, but like we start to see actual relationships that he has with people, which is kind of cool, right?
No,
But you're right. Most of the time he's robotic.
Yeah, there's definitely like a fine line, and I think his humanity, so to speak, comes out like when he's dealing with like his proteges, and that's a huge part of the original Thrawn trilogy, the one that focuses on him and the Empire. Is he's so like culture oriented, and his ships have such a culture of loyalty, and like they even talk about how like. So in the third one, if you remember, that Assistant Director Ronan's trying to cause problems on the ship. And there's a scene in the beginning of the book where Assistant Director Ronan's like, I had to literally go all the way down to the hangar master to find somebody that wasn't so loyal to Thrawn that they wouldn't help me. You know what I mean? And like, that's definitely a big thing. And you deal with that a lot in the Ascendancy trilogy, because there's Mid-Captain Samacro doesn't like Thrawn at first. Lakinda doesn't like Thrawn at first. There's a bunch of people in the Ascendancy that kind of don't necessarily like him, but he wins them over with his authenticity. You know what I mean? And his skill set
and his
all those
consistency.
Yeah.
Like, who else do you know that consistently wins at every single thing they do, pretty much? And again, this is a character in a book. We've got to keep that in mind. Like, that is not realistic, of course, but it just works. Like, Thrawn is about as perfect as you can get.
Yeah, it's funny because his, I thought it was weird how he never loses. Like, he doesn't lose in any of the books, and I think that kind of makes it so that the Rebels' failures kind of make the most sense. Because I did some digging on Thrawn in the news category because I wanted to see if there was any intel about what's coming along with live action. And there was some report out that like that he might be going out with Ezra Bridger to some place called like New Space, which is like some undiscovered area of
Kathleen's like, hey. New Space.
That was the first thing.
Really?
Literally the first thing I thought because they're
Oh
like,
my
and
gosh.
they see and use the Force differently and all this
Oh
stuff.
my gosh.
And I literally was like, this literally sounds like something Kathleen Kennedy would come up with. But
can you imagine if she tried to make like a bunch of like superhero-esque characters like that could like fly around like Superman or something?
yeah,
bullshit?
she probably would
my
try to
gosh.
do that too. But like so like I was
Hard
reading up on
pass.
that and it was like it's all like leaks and reports, so who the heck knows? Like I think it makes way more sense to have Ezra and Thrawn end up back in the Ascendancy, and then have Ahsoka find them there, and then the three of them together deal with the Grisk. I think that would be really cool.
That would be legit.
The one thing that would be tough there logistically is the vast majority of the characters in the show that would be speaking parts would be blue-skinned Chiss, which just from a makeup perspective would be really difficult, but I think it'd be really cool.
Oh, it'd be so cool. So Jason and I were watching a little bit of a synopsis earlier, and there was a bunch of like pictures of Chiss standing next to each other, and it was like so cool to see that alien race just like one after the next, just next to each other because they look so incredibly cool, right?
Yeah, and they're like a warrior society too.
They are, but they do it with smarts.
Yeah, they're definitely like a very civilized militaristic society.
Right.
Like it's not like the Kilji Illumin like you're reading about in the third Thrawn book, like that kind of thing. It's very civilized.
It is. Well, and it's cool because Thrawn refers to himself as a warrior at least once.
I love that. I love the like little one-liners where it's like, "May warrior's fortune,"
Right.
Be a part, or like, if "May good fortune be with you in the wars to come," or whatever. Like he has all these different one-liners, and I'm like, dude, this society is just dope. I want to be a part of it.
My sidetrack. My favorite one-liner for Thrawn is perhaps not.
Perhaps not.
Right. Because he's so analytical.
Possibly. Yeah, he does all whenever he's doing his little games with his commanders and stuff.
Yeah.
But anyway, what were we talking about just a second ago as it pertains to Thrawn? I can't remember exactly how we got down this rabbit hole, but anyway, just in general, like I'm excited to see what they end up doing with him in the live action side of things.
I'm too.
And where they're headed in that direction, and I think with the Ascendancy trilogy and with the actual trilogy focusing on his time in the Empire, they've made it very clear that he's not a malicious character.
Right.
And so that's going to be the interesting kind of like turn of events as things kind of move into the future, is just to see how they kind of portray him in live action in that sense.
And hopefully they get it right, but we'll see.
I agree. So, all right. So with this second book, so if you guys remember, they beat the Nick Ardoon in the first book in the Ascendancy trilogy.
The Nick Ardoon Destiny. And as the second book is starting, they are dealing with cleaning up what's left of the Nick Ardoon remnant. But that book actually starts with Jixtis, the character that is the leader of the Grisk, as you've learned. They reveal that. It's either at the very end of the second book or the very beginning of the third book. But basically, Jixtis is of the Grisk. And we meet his first client species, which is the Agbui. And happily has engineered a civil war essentially on this planet called Sunrise that has basically destroyed the planet. And as we learn in the first Ascendancy trilogy book, that refugee ship, you can kind of start to see like this whole trilogy is based on Jixtis's plot. Right.
But we don't actually meet Jixtis until the second book.
Right.
And so if you remember in the first Ascendancy book, the book opens with 3 Patatas. I think it was Patatas, but I can't remember who it is. But a random alien race just attacks Chila. And that was another client species of the Grisk. And they did that on purpose because the refugee ship from Sunrise escaped, and they employed the Nicardoon, who was another client species of the Grisk, to kill that ship.
Right.
And it was a derelict ship. And that's how it all starts. And that's what it was so cool, is like everything is so intricately tied together.
It is a giant
in the
web.
3 books. Oh, yeah. Timothy Zahn, super, super impressive. Oh, that's what when I was confused as to what we were talking about. Timothy Zahn wrote the original Thrawn books, the ones from before when Disney took over the company. And in those books, it was a clear thing that like he could only lose when something was outside of his control.
Right.
And the Jedi eventually beat Thrawn in that book. Thrawn leads the Imperial Remnant, and they eventually beat Thrawn in that book over something that's out of Thrawn's control,
which is what we see in Rebels.
And that was my thing that was cool, is like in all 6 books, like Thrawn never fails, but he fails twice against the Rebels in the Rebels TV series. And both times it's because of the what's the guy in the cloud?
Dude, I was trying so hard to remember. We've got the space whales and the guy in the cloud.
Yeah, the space whales and the cloud force user, but probably both from New Space.
What's
right?
his name? It's oh my gosh, dude, we are so bad sometimes.
I know we're bad names.
He calls himself the something, doesn't he?
Yeah, I can't remember. It's gonna come to us. But anyway, you get the drift. But so
tell us in the comments, even though we'll know in
exactly
2 seconds.
We'll remember at some point. So Jixtis basically Happyleaf basically goes like, "Hey, can I go back to my people now?" And Jixtis goes, "Nope, you've got one more job, and that's the Chiss." Right. So this entire second book basically tells us about Happyleaf's plot to destroy the Chiss, and it basically starts with him finding this young couple of Chiss teenagers or whatever,
right. Yopanik and Yomi.
Yes, and he basically uses them to try to get to a lower level official,
right?
A lower level family official. And in the process, there's this, we were joking about earlier, there's this funny scene where the girl keeps getting in the way because all she wants to do is look at birds.
Yeah. Bird migration patterns,
bird
more specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's just a huge bird migration fan.
Yeah.
and like
as young people get into, birds.
Exactly. And the Happyleaf basically portrays himself as like this kind of harmless, like intellectual character. And
he's a complete creep.
They call them cultural nomads, right?
Yeah, cultural nomads.
Yes, and he apparently has like super long arms and crazy strong hands because he just straight up chokes this girl to death and throws her out the airlock and kills her
in space. Yeah.
Yes.
And then Yopanik, because they're together, right? It's just like, oh, I guess she just kind of left, and he's okay with it, like.
Yeah. Yopanik was not really all that into Yomi. I think he was more interested in the political ladder.
Yeah.
Which, whatever. So, savages and the like, it's just a lifestyle. It's
just
the
like chaos.
You're
Savages
just pushing people down to get up to the top. Like
Star Wars universe
Yopanik
is a big
savage.
place. Actually, this is outside of the Star Wars universe. Well, it's technically in there, but they start the books. Did you notice that they start the books in a different way? So like all the Star Wars books start with like long ago in a galaxy far, far away. There's something different that they say. It's like long ago in a galaxy, like next to something far away. Like they change the wording slightly.
Oh, I haven't seen that. I'll have to
look
at that.
I shouldn't have even brought that up because I didn't know what I was talking about.
No, you're fine. Well, now I'm curious. I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah.
But anyway, so Yopanik is a savage, and he doesn't care that he loses his wife. He just wants to move on up. So he gets Happyleaf in touch with the lower level official. It turns out Happyleaf's whole thing about getting in touch with a lower level official to grow spices was really just a ploy to get him around those officials so he could start name dropping essentially this Nyax mine.
Right.
And the Nyax essentially is a highly valuable metal that allows them to build these starships.
Right.
And they end up, the family ends up going to check it out, and they have a fake mine set up on this fake planet or this deserted planet, all this different stuff. And then we find out at the end of the book that either Happyleaf or other Agbui have pulled off a type of ploy on 2 additional families.
Yeah.
And Yopanik, again, just has all the answers, goes like, hey, dude, like you should try calling into question this family
emergency clause.
Emergency clause that allows you to take anybody from the Defense Force or the expansionary defense fleet to come and fight in family ships for you.
Which, by the way, like, let's focus on that for a second. Chiss, maybe you should not allow that to happen.
Yeah, that's crazy.
A giant crap storm for you guys. Like, and that's a wild rule. And they kind of alluded to the fact that it's extraordinarily outdated.
Yes.
Right. And how people didn't even know it existed.
Well, it had been over 100 years since someone had used that clause, if I remember correctly.
Right.
But anyway, then right around the same time, there's a navigator named Kilori of Uwan Dualan, and it's funny because the voice actor for the book just makes him sound like such a loser.
Yeah,
and he basically like goes to Jixtus like, "Hey, this Thrawn dude is like crazy. You've got to get rid of him." And so they basically fake a pirate base and draw Thrawn into it, and in that process try to kill him with like a bunch of remote powered ships, which of course Thrawn turns on their head, ends up capturing the ships and all the remote control equipment. Cool. Really a cool scene. Yeah. But Thrawn actually this is where Thrawn starts to unravel it all. He basically finds out from the dude who tried to kill him that he got hired by a cloaked figure, and he starts to put things together. And then who was it? One of the, if I remember correctly, one of the family officials for the Zodlak ends up literally sending the brooch to Thrawn.
Right.
And then Thrawn wakes up. Remember the Magus? So we have the Magus and the refugees, which are the people that are on, because there were two refugee ships, the one that got destroyed and another one that was not captured, but saved by the Patatas.
Right. And like let's break down who the Magus is really quickly for our viewers.
This is important.
It is. It's incredibly important. So the Magus is essentially the lead of the race of aliens on Sunrise, right?
Yes.
And Sunrise, the planet.
The Force lead.
Yeah,
like a religious leader.
Right. And Sunrise, the planet, is being decimated for its Nyax, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So the Magus is just
by
the
Gris.
Yes. And we'll talk about that more later, but the Magus is an incredibly important character that essentially if Thrawn doesn't get to the Magus to understand everything that's going on, essentially this entire alien race is going to commit suicide.
Yep.
Under her order, because she thinks it's important for them to be able to enter something called the Beyond,
which is essentially
the Force, right? And her people will literally follow her into a mass suicide. So
which is creepy.
Yeah, incredibly important character. So anyways,
she thinks that they can heal the planet to be used by other alien races if they all disappear into the Force.
Right.
And what's crazy too is she actually tells one of her higher level subsidiaries to be like, hey, like you got to kill yourself, and the dude just dies.
Yeah.
And like they're like there was no wounds,
wild.
there was no nothing. Like he was able to just like mentally kill himself, which is creepy.
Yeah. So Thrawn has the Magus essentially in hibernation, right? Think like bounty hunter style, where like Han Solo's like stuck in hibernation. Probably not that bad, but anyway. So then Thrawn goes and wakes her up to show her this brooch, right?
Yep. Yeah. And basically she goes, that's not an Agbui brooch, that's our brooch.
Right.
She
named
those.
exactly like the area on her planet where it was made.
So it turns out there is a real Nyax mine on Sunrise, not on this fake Agbui planet, and that's kind of where everything kind of unravels. So Thrawn starts to put everything together, and then he gets in touch with Lakinda. Lakinda, who's one of the basically there's three ships that are regularly make appearances in the Thrawn Ascendancy trilogy: the Vigilance, which is Arlani's ship; the Grey Strike, which I believe is Lakinda's ship. And then there's one more, I can't remember exactly what it is, but it's Thrawn's ship, that Mid-Captain Smacker also. And those are kind of like your protagonists in this trilogy. But Lakinda gets that phone call or that message that like says, hey, you need to come fight for the Zodlak for this Nyax mine.
Right.
So she leaves, but Thrawn manages to get through to her and break down the ploy to her. So now she's fighting on Thrawn's side, which of course goes south because her own family kicks her out of her command, remember?
Yeah.
Which was crazy.
Well, and what this book focuses on. So when you initially meet the Chiss in the original series, when Thrawn is working for the Empire, you think of the Chiss race as like pristine and perfect, and you see them as this giant powerhouse. But this series breaks down how untrue that is. Like how important the families. So there's how many families?
There's 9 ruling families and then 40
lesser
families that are also powerful, and then there's everything else beneath that.
Yeah, and you literally get the picture of like, okay, like planet Earth with all the different countries, right? And like, yeah, if we were attacked by aliens, I'm sure we could team up with anybody who we're not super close with, China,
Yeah.
and fight some aliens. Like, of course we could. but when there's not like something towering over the Chiss,
We're all fighting against each
fight
other.
against each other. Yeah, exactly.
Well, and that's what's super interesting because, like, it's all, again, this is a prequel to the actual Thrawn trilogy. And in the Thrawn trilogy, in the second book, the one with Darth Vader, Darth Vader's flying around in a TIE Defender in the final battle at the Grisk base, and Thrawn's on his capital ship, and they're winning. The Empire's winning. And right as the Grisk ship is getting ready to self-destruct, Vader spots a Chiss ship pull away from the Grisk ship and leave. Now, I don't want to get too far into this because this is a big part of the third book, which you're getting into. But this book, with Happleaf, this is the first attempt by the Grisk to divide the Chiss.
Yeah. Okay.
And it is heavily implied that it eventually works because we literally see many years later as Thrawn and Darth Vader are rescuing the Chiss navigators from the Grisk, that there is some portion of the Chiss that is collaborating with the Grisk in Empire space.
Who are literally the Chiss ultimate enemy.
Yeah. So and like Vader questions Thrawn about it, and Thrawn basically says, like, when I left, we were fracturing.
Wow.
And it's important to know that, like, and this again gets revealed at the end of the third book in more detail, but as you know, Thrawn goes to the Empire on a mission from the Ascendancy.
Right.
The military officials, so there's, I can't remember exactly what they call it, but Admiral Ar'alani technically was a part of a family. I can't remember which one it was. But I think it might have been Klar, but I'm not.
I believe you're right.
But I'm not entirely certain. But anyway, when you become a flag officer, which I believe is Commodore or higher, when you get to that point, you drop the family name. And it's like a traditional thing in the Chiss Ascendancy because they don't want you to have significant family ties when you're at that point.
Right.
And so what's cool about that is, like, guys like General Bakif, Supreme Admiral Jafosk, Admiral Ar'alani, they are all like separate from the Ascendancy politics. And it was their idea.
That's the idea. It's the idea that they should be, but that doesn't always happen.
They basically sent Thrawn to the Empire to evaluate them as an ally against the Grisk. And you can kind of see the picture all kind of like coming together at this point with the way that the novels are coming together. But to make a long story short, Thrawn shows up with his 15 remote controlled gunboats that tried to kill him, and that from Jixtus's other plot. And at the same time as all these three families show up to go fight each other for these mines.
They're going to fight each other for this fake mine that does not exist over a planet that doesn't have any resources over it.
Yeah, there's literally nothing there. It's a fake mine. And Thrawn saves the day once again by portraying that he's being attacked by pirates, forcing the Ascendancy ships to help him. In the process, he literally sends like a bunch of crap just like crash landing into the mine.
The fake mine.
And destroys the fake mine. And then basically everyone goes home after and pretends it didn't happen. Because all the families are embarrassed.
They're all embarrassed and they try and cover it up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where things open up in the third book. But like essentially this was the first attempt by the Grisk to subvert things. But there was a lot of success because this was not very well resolved. And the families are still, everyone's clawing. You learn in the books that there's all these different political machinations. Like each of the ruling 9 has several families from the 40 that are allied with. They have big rivalries. Like the Arizi are big rivals with the Myth, for instance. And like everyone's got like these different endeavors. Like it'll be like, oh, this planet is a big farming planet, but the entire planet is owned by this ruling family, and this is all their resources. And so you kind of see that in the third book too, as you're reading, where like their fleets, they start to amass their family fleets on their planets to protect themselves. Like really, like even though Happleaf eventually dies because the one I can't remember who it is.
He's like the farm owner.
Yeah, the farm owner who's one of the Zodlak basically is like, hey dude, I know you're a scumbag. and they get into a fight with each other, and the other dude wins. Doesn't like one of their bulls get involved, like one of their animals?
Oh yeah,
and like the animal
What
comes in
happens?
and like bites his arm or something like
right.
that.
And then
Yeah.
he uses the animal to like take out the farmer.
Yeah, but then he eventually happily dies, basically. And happily, as he's dying, is like, it's too late, I've already won. It's too late, I've already won. But like, and Thrawn does stop the Civil War from happening faster. But like, it's very clear when all those families show up and people start arguing, it's like, this is kind of the beginning of the end.
Right.
Like the Chiss Ascendancy is beginning to fracture
Right.
at this point.
Right. And then the last part of it is they bring up Starflash, which they kind of get into in the third book way more.
Yeah, so I don't want to spoil it because we're going to do a whole thing on the third book. But basically, Mithurfian, who's this myth syndic who is trying to basically sabotage Thrawn, because there's a consistent theme in these books that like the higher ups like know Thrawn is skilled, but he's such a risk taker that they're worried that he's going to ruin things.
And rightfully so. Like Thrawn does literally whatever he wants.
Well, yeah, didn't at one point he let what did he do with the? That's right, he let one of the navigators get captured by that Nick Ardoon guy. And remember, he stashed like a neurotoxin in her makeup. Remember that? Like that was crazy. That was a wild scene.
It was.
But he's just crazy. And like in that same scene, I think he crashes a ship like into the bridge. Like he's just like Thrawn is just a crazy. He's just crazy. Dude.
He is.
Yeah.
He sees the world in a different way.
Yeah.
That nobody else
absolutely
can.
does.
Yeah.
But so anyway, this was the I thought where things really kind of picked up in this trilogy, and then the third book, because like honestly the Hapleaf, Yopanek, and Yomi storyline, there's a middle third of this book that is tough to get through.
It's a little long, so like it's definitely there to make some points and to set up like the larger picture, but that is a long listen.
Yeah,
if you do the audiobook.
If you could cut out that particular storyline, this would be a better book. But what I do appreciate is the third book is like from start to finish, just action the whole way.
I'm enjoying it. And again, they've done a great job with the audiobooks because like they add on like laser fire and music, and it's all incredible.
Yeah, I'm enjoying going through these audiobooks with Luke. We're gonna finish the third Ascendancy trilogy book, and then we'll probably do one episode that kind of encapsulates all six and talks about how the different storylines tie together, because there's a lot to get into from my re-listen of the first one.
Yeah, I want to hear your take on that.
And then from there, I'm pretty sure the High Republic stuff is already starting, so we'll have High Republic stuff, and then I really want to do Darth Bane, and then March is Mandalorian season 3.
Something good to talk about. Yeah.
Ahsoka is going to be coming out probably next summer. I would imagine Ahsoka will be on the same timeline as Obi-Wan Kenobi was, like in June.
Yeah.
So we got a lot of good Star Wars stuff coming up.
For sure.
I'm thinking that we might have to Luke and I are trying to think of kind of like how we did Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, like picking something else. So we might end up doing like Yellowstone, I'm thinking. Or maybe not Yellowstone specifically, or maybe that 1990 or 1903 or whatever, the one with Harrison Ford.
Yeah, that'd be cool.
Which I think would be interesting. So, if you guys have any other specific shows that you guys like us to break down, I'm sure,
or even
we can make it work. Yeah, or
anything
just
other than politics.
Yeah, just anything other than politics. Exactly.
We will not talk politics or religion on this show.
Not gonna happen. All right, guys. As always, we appreciate your support, and we will see you next time.
Thanks a lot.